Hi there, and welcome to the Skylight Books author reading series. If you'd like to learn more about us and our many upcoming author events, please visit skylightbooks.com, where you can browse our inventory, buy books, and join our Friends with Benefits Club. You can also follow us on Twitter, Tumblr, and Facebook. To speak to a real live bookseller like me, please call 323-660-1175. Thanks for your support, and enjoy.
And Jim Pascoe, he's been doing this, at least at this store. He had a debut of one of her books.
In 1998.
In 1998, 20 years ago, people, 20 years ago. So it's always a pleasure to have you here. And it's always been a shock dresser, always, ever since, really, all this time. A few announcements before we begin. If you can turn your cell phones to silent, that'd be great. But feel free to Facebook and tweet all you want. You know, if you tweet at Skylight Books, we will retweet your tweet to our 30,000 followers. Yeah. So please mention at Cecil Castellucci. Do you have Twitter?
Yeah, at Jim Pascoe.
At Jim Pascoe.
I'm at Heidi Arnhold.
At Heidi Arnhold. So tag everybody, so that when 30,000 people see this, they'll know all about this book. Okay. Also, we have some terrific people coming to the store next week on the 10th. Otessa Moshfegh will be here for My Fear of Rest and Relaxation. On the 11th, as Zoe Samudzi will be here for As Black as Resistance, Finding the Conditions for Liberation. On the 12th, Amber Tamblyn will be here in conversation with the writer Janet Fitch. And on Friday the 13th, an event that I'm really looking forward to and I'll be hosting is Leslie Schwartz's The Lost Chapters, Finding Recovery and Renewal, One Book at a Time, in conversation with Brenda Murphy. So please come by, it should be loads and loads and loads of fun. World Wide Web, skylightbooks.com. I'm going to introduce Cecil Castellucci, who will introduce the other panelists. Cecil has also been here for 20 years. So I have witnessed her every single year, almost every single year, wipe down the shelves of the store to make sure it's clean at the beginning of the year. Really, it's dedicated. But she's been coming to Skylight before she was published. And how many books have you published now? 18 books, people. 18 books. Just to give you some context, Judy Blume, who's still writing, she's written 27. So you're only 10 books away from beating Judy Blume. So
I'm still trying to run my Twitter
and also to let you know that Cecil Castellucci is a dear friend of the store. She does a lot of volunteer work for us. She spreads goodwill. She does things like host panels here. We're so very happy to have her here. We also have her books on sale, so please feel free to check them out. Welcome, Cecil Castellucci.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here tonight because I love comics, and actually we were talking earlier, and I hosted you 5 years ago, 6 years ago, yeah. So this is kind of a reunion.
It is.
It's like a bring the band back together kind of situation. But I love comics, and I love comics for kids, and I love comics for kids because they really are comics for all ages. And that means, like Tintin, like Hergé, who wrote Tintin, said, from 7 to 77. So that's something that's really dear to me, and I think that we'll all agree that The Secret of the Wind is that kind of book, that it's truly an all ages book in that way. So let me introduce Jim and Heidi. Jim is a writer, designer, and award-winning creative director. His comics credits include Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Hellboy Animated, and the original series Undertown. Heidi Arnhold is a graduate of the Savannah College of Art and Design, whose published works have involved popular franchises like Star Trek, The Dark Crystal, and Fraggle Rock. So please give a warm welcome to Jim Pascoe and Heidi. So we're going to start off with the trailer first.
Well, just because I have it up, we'll show some pages.
Perfect. We're going to show some pages, then we're going to show the fabulous trailer, and then we're going to have a panel discussion. So this will be to give you an amuse-bouche of the book, in case you haven't picked it up and flipped through its gorgeousness already.
So I really just wanted to show two pages, or two spreads. This is the first full spread in the book, pages 2 and 3. Lots of exciting things going on here. But I particularly wanted to contrast this because Heidi and I have been working on this for a long, long time. And when we were searching for a publisher, we had a sample script of just a few pages, and we decided to actually draw 3 full pages, and 2 of them became these 2 pages. So I have the original pages that were drawn I want to say 5 years ago, and that's this.
Wow.
And it's funny, I probably haven't looked at this myself before today in like 4 or 5 years. But I mean, aside from the fact that the lettering is very different,
They're a lot better.
It's really amazing to me how the story didn't really change, and a lot of the panels that I know I can speak of that I love, like the top of page 3, the prop on the fox, the jumping of the group of the rabbits, and the main character Bridgebelle hiding in the log, didn't change significantly. But I do feel like we've come a long way. So
See yours just one more time.
yeah.
That was a big stylistic difference. We were trying to find our voice, and we didn't feel like that was hitting it at the time.
Yeah. It's still pretty,
Yes.
I think.
Yeah, it's amazing to see this music in it all this time.
So we were very lucky to have put together a trailer, and so I will attempt to play that now.
I have the same dream every night. A dream about my childhood home. Everyone is gone, taken up by the wind. Everyone but me. Your sister had a secret. I think he can save us.
Not so shabby.
So yeah, I think that gives us a really good idea of like the drama of the book. Maybe that's the next YouTube video.
I didn't skip ahead.
This idea of forgetting others who walk.
How do we do
That's
that?
not. That's not the
I was a
book.
little bit late. That was a little bit earlier. We won't talk about that video.
Amazing. Okay.
But that jazz horn just out of nowhere. I was just really like, okay, it's happening.
Yeah, it just
It's like the event is about to start.
Yeah, it heightened the mystery, right?
For sure.
Okay, well, the first thing I actually want to ask about is, because you hinted at it already, and I know because I read, so you guys have been working on this book for a long time. So, as far as I understand, you've been working on this book since 2010-ish?
I would say that we started closer to, microphone. Closer to 2014 is when we actually really got going. 2013 we were working on. 2012, 2015?
Well, so I feel like we didn't really start working on it until probably around 2013. But the story really began at Comic-Con in San Diego in 2010. Heidi and I both had books published by Tokyo Pop, and so we had met at an event, and we had a few drinks, as we are wont to do. And we were discussing just about future projects and dream projects, and on the drive home from San Diego, I had this vision of drawing, or of writing a book for Heidi that I knew that if I could capture this, like what we had talked about, and it was a story that was in her, then nobody in the entire world would be able to draw it. And right, like the Monday after Comic-Con, I sent Heidi an email and sort of told her about this. And looking back at that email, it's a little bit different, but it talks about Bridgebelle, and it talks about the Valley of the Clouds, and Heidi amazingly didn't just say, like, you weirdo, I don't want to talk to you anymore. But I would say that it was probably a good 3 years of shuffling other projects and just kind of figuring out priorities before we really had kind of both independently come to this decision that, like, this was worth doing no matter what. And at that point, we started to put together a proposal and then got the deal after that.
Well, I mean, like, as an artist myself, like, I just find that those, like, and comics as well just take so long that, like, I just find those, like, moments where you find a kindred spirit, to sort of, where, like, that spark kind of, like, with your cha happens, like, you just, kind of go with it. So was being an artist, so why don't you, this is a trilogy, and so the trilogy is called the Cottons.
Yeah.
And why don't you set it up for us a little bit?
I think the simple summary of the series is Cottons is about a young girl who is struggling with leading an artistic life in a society that does not value art, and it's told, as we've seen, as a fable between rabbits and foxes. And so from there, there are many other characters, and there are many other things that happen, but at its heart, it's a story about an artist. And the 3 volumes, which are all written, and the second volume is drawn but not colored. The story itself is very complete, and while it is absolutely a single tale, and it is Bridgebelle's coming-of-age story, very much. It's each volume is self-contained in some way, where there's a mystery, or there's an adventure, or there's something that happens that gets resolved at the end of the volume. So that's the the plan, and part of why we've been working on this for so long is that I think that the first book was finished 2 years ago at least, right? I mean,
2016.
Yeah.
I finished it.
But the publisher, which is First Second Macmillan, I think they're pretty smart cookies over there, and they really insisted that that we wait until we had enough of the following books in preparation to be able to sort of really release them together, 1 year apart.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So what? I mean, this may sound like a bizarre question, because I mean, like, I know why art is important. I feel it, but what was the conversation that you guys had where you went away with this idea that, like, okay, we need to make a book that talks about the struggle of an artist who just wants to do their thing?
Honestly, I don't think we ever had a conversation.
Like that? No.
No, I mean, you wrote this, and I'm working off of the script, and I'm thinking, this book was meant for me. This book was made for me, and I'm connecting with it so hard right now. And I don't think I ever talked to you about it.
You know, it's funny. I've read a number of books with Tom Pascoe, who's a good friend and collaborator, and I remember in the early days where the LA Weekly called our books "drunken plotting," mostly because we were probably drunk. And like I remember having this conversation very distinctly with Tom, like, what's the theme of this book? And he's like, theme? I don't know what the theme is. I mean, it's like, let's just write something cool. And I feel like you know, in all jokes aside, there was a real lesson there of sort of not overthinking the writing. And so I feel like I could speak at length about what this book means to me and how it's come together and what I think the message is. But that was never the goal. The goal was never to be preachy or off-putting in that way. I think that what we just wanted to really do is draw and create a story about rabbits that was just filled with emotion, filled with love, and like that. And you know, the fact that there was a story about art and artists and occult and magic and all this other stuff was just kind of happened. And I don't want to make it seem like it wasn't hard work on our part, but it really just kind of happened because the North Star was just making something that we thought was cool.
When you got the first initial email, were you and you know Jim has said like he wrote it specifically for you, and you said that like it sort of sang to you in some way, like from the get-go, was it rabbits and foxes?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the foxes maybe. I mean, definitely rabbits. It was. You know, for those people that don't know, Heidi loves rabbits. I think that's safe to say.
Pretty obviously. Huge crazy bunny lady. So.
Do you own a bunch of bunnies?
I have one.
Have bunny friends?
Yeah.
I don't want to say own.
Yeah.
That
Oh
seems
yes,
wrong.
yeah, I'm owned by a rabbit.
Yeah, exactly.
Is the correct term. Yeah, she is almost 12.
Mm-hmm.
Yay. What's her name?
Her name is Josephine, and she is my best friend. And
was she a model for any of the characters in the book?
you know the irony? Okay, so half the reason you described Bridgebelle in that email to me. You didn't know I had a rabbit,
I didn't know you.
and you described her, and I'm like, that sounds awfully close to Joe, like frighteningly close to Joe. Like the sentence plot line that you gave me was already gripping enough, but I'm like, I want to immortalize my rabbit on the page. You know, like I already, you know, that was part of the reason I'm like, I want to draw a book with my rabbit as the main character. And obviously, you know, they don't look exactly alike, but there's some similarities there that, I don't know, it just makes it extra special to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I want to know about world building. Jim, what was the first step in creating this world? Because it's a huge world, right? It's a post-apocalyptic world in a sense.
I like to call it a post-apocalyptic world.
A post-apocalyptic world.
Yeah, because it takes place in a different place than Earth, but it takes place 500 years after the fall of a highly civilized rabbit society. And so what we're dealing with isn't the kind of typical Cormac McCarthy The Road, or you know I'm Living, or this kind of zombie wasteland. We're dealing with a world that has been reborn, and it's beautiful and it's lush, but it has been kind of reset. And so you have these characters that have a sort of a strange semblance and connection to the past, and the fact that they still form as a society and they talk, and but there's all this forgotten technology where it's everything from this factory that refines carrots into this sort of magical thing called cha, to just sort of like ordinary objects that they have forgotten, like a key and a lock and a cage. Like they're sort of alien to like they understand them as like myths because they know that they're in the world, but it's all kind of been blown away. And so where we're at in the story is less about sort of survival or even rebuilding. There's no sense of rebuilding.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sense of kind of reclaiming and understanding like their place in the world. And I feel like the truth is, we live in a society that feels very advanced, but in many ways it's like we are trying to figure out our place in the world and like how to make sense of things around us. And I feel like that was that sense was a good starting point for me.
Well, you have like such a rich idea of what the world is. I was so struck by that, with both, the writing, I'm sure, but also the art, in terms of the factory and the lovely rabbits who are the religious rabbits who have their. This is me binding my ears. Me binding my bunny ears. And the like. I just loved those two fierce lady rabbits who are the religious rabbits, I guess, and the way that they look. Did you know that they would have bound ears from the text, or was that something that you came up with on your own? Like, how did the world all work out? Like, what was the collaboration between you guys in terms of fueling the world?
Well, you more or less just kind of gave me verbal cues. You mentioned that their ears were bound, and then I kind of took certain designs and just ran with it. Just doing the crisscross pattern. It seemed to work. I guess, I don't think I did more than a couple sketches for those, and that seemed to work. As far as the factory is concerned, a lot went into the factory. I tried to look at each level and how you described each level, what its purpose was, and I wanted to do something different but also have it grounded in reality so at least people could somewhat believe how they process this material. So I did like schematics in Photoshop for each layer, and you know what, I even, based on how things moved in the script, I changed like that set of stairs. I added that set of stairs because I'm like, there's this area where, this part where these two characters are walking down these set of stairs and you're overlooking everything, and also, we need to have rabbits get up to this layer to look at the technology and make sure it's running somewhat properly. They don't really know fully how to keep it running, but they need to be able to examine it. And I added a couple things like that as well, just as far as, logistics. You start asking yourself these questions when you start designing a world and everything.
That's the hard thing about comics is that when you're writing a story, you can have a lot of things that are in your mind, and you can kind of imagine that it's sort of like, it's a room, but when you're forced to draw it, it's like you have to know how many windows are in that room, and is there carpeting on the room? Is there furniture in the room? What's the furniture look like? And it's easy to say that none of that stuff is important, but at the very least, it's important to the artist because you have to draw it. I feel like the way that I did both the development and even the script is, I tend to be very meticulous, but my day job is advertising, and I work with a lot of amazing creatives. And instead of being sort of like super specific, I feel like what I want to do is just to suggest and make clear what it is, like the emotion that I want to create out of a scene. And so again, it was important to me for the religious rabbits who are called the Windus curatus. The religion of the rabbits is called Windism. Wind, get it? It was important to me that they had this very ascetic practice of binding their ears. In kind of an Eastern koan-like fashion of denying themselves what is most pure to a rabbit, which is to be able to hear and to be able to detect their enemies, and to trust in this spirit that would guide them, and to know that they can deny themselves that sense. And that was it. And so everything else is what Heidi put into it. And there was really, I would say, there was a lot of back and forth of like, and I feel like even after we began the book, it was probably a year before you actually started drawing pages. because there was finishing the script, but there was also tons of characters, tons of objects, and there was just all of these drawings back and forth that were like, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? What do you think of this? And I would say, if anything, there were occasional things where I was sort of like, I don't know about that, but most of it was less about like, oh, that's exactly what I had in my head, and it was sort of like, oh, you're meeting me halfway. Like, this is just an idea. It doesn't have shape or form. You're bringing shape or form to it, and I feel like that's the magic of comics.
I agree totally. It's the best thing. Like, that collaboration and that conversation. I often think of the script as a scaffolding to give to the artist, and then they can throw out whatever they don't need, but it's sort of this beautiful collaboration. Do you do open script or full script?
It's full script and it's very detailed. And again, I would say that, and again, a lot of it comes from just having written comics for many, many years, and very specifically written comics and having them published, because as I'm sure you realize, it's sort of like you read comics, you love them, you're like, this doesn't seem that hard, and then you write a script, and you're like, okay, that was pretty easy, and then you get somebody to draw it, and it's totally wrong, and you're like, okay, well, that's not how it felt like in my head at all, or that's not, that doesn't, it's, I thought it was going to be slower than that, and so I feel like it's, in all of the writing that I've done, I've really taken the lessons of how the writing and specifically the pacing, because I feel like that is a large part of visual storytelling, is the time between panels and between pages, to figure that out so that it was hitting the beats the way that I wanted them to make the story breathe. It did not make it rushed, but not make it too slow. The scripts were calling out specific panels and specific layouts, and all of my scripts always say this, but certainly with Heidi, I said, this is yours. You throw the whole thing out, but you just need to know what I am thinking. This is my starting point. Take it somewhere completely different. And there were plenty of times where it's like it would get drawn, and then we would look at it together and be like, something's not right about it, and sometimes it would be as simple as like take those two panels and flop them, because you need to see this little bit of action before the pause, instead of a pause and then an action and another action. Every once I feel like the process of sending me pages, I tend to make extremely detailed notes, as people who work for me probably appreciate or don't appreciate. But yeah, the editorial process was very controlled like that, because we were just always looking to improve it and tweak it. But I gotta say, of all the collaborators I've worked with, Heidi has a magic that is, when I see what she does, it's not just that it's right. It's not just that it's good. It's not just that it's right. It's just it's transcendent. It really and I feel like it's the emotions that are the way that you capture just pure feeling is magical.
Thank you.
Let's talk, Heidi, about the style of the book, because we saw the first the pitch pages that you did, and then the change. Can you talk about how you came up with such a lush, beautiful sort of? It feels watery, or like sort of, because it's got the art in it, and it's got just sort of like the bending grass everywhere. It's just so beautiful. How did you come up with that style, and what was the process from change from the original pitch pages to the finals? Because the colors are different, and yeah.
Honestly, it kind of transitioned back and forth. I think that page, the older pages that you showed, was the second take, because initially what I wanted to do was have the backgrounds be in watercolor, and then have the characters, like I wanted to physically watercolor these pages, and then have the characters be done digitally to pop them out. At the very least, color digitally to pop them out. And It didn't work out. My scanner was not cooperating. I tried an iteration where I was like, well, I'll do ink wash, and then I'll scan that in, and throw some colors on that, and maybe that will work. And for some, it washed out the pencils. It just was this weird process where everything was fighting me. And then eventually I landed on, okay, all right, the pencils will be for background only, and the characters will be inked, and it'll all be colored digitally. But I have some amazing digital watercolor brushes that will give it that feel with the kind of control that I need. And fortunately, at that point, I'm like, okay, I landed it. This is what we need. This is what works. I did try, the purple pages, as pretty as they were. I was thinking, well, maybe we should just go full on, digital color without the added texture with the watercolor brush. But that just wasn't working for me. Oftentimes, I go with my gut, and sometimes something doesn't speak to me, and I want to draw things that move me, that I connect to.
It's just, it's just beautiful. When you're looking at it on the page, it's a real world that you sink into, I think, I'm curious about, did you always have the plan to have it have chapters? Because that's not very common for sort of, graphic novels, but this sort of makes it feel like a novel in a sense because it has the chapters.
I would say this is a little bit of a learning experience that I had from doing my last series with Tokyo Pop called Undertown. So, because both Undertown and Cotton's Secret of the Wind were written in script form in chapters or in sections. And somehow, just with the process of Tokyo Pop and their kind of rigid structure, Tokyo Pop published Japanese manga, also some original English language manga. I was part of the English language program, and the book that we did was in the traditional Japanese tankobon size, and it was as much as I have loved manga for years, it was actually very challenging writing in that format because the page size is so small. I remember my editor saying, like, you should probably do about 3 panels a page. And I was like, 3 panels a page? Watchmen has 9 panels! Don't you know anything? But it became very clear that it's like, that's what it needs to be. And basically, so I was writing it, wanting it to be very fast, because I feel like that's a hallmark of Japanese comics. And the decision was to sort of run, it was 160 drawn pages, and to just run them all together. Tokyo Pop did the book design, I didn't have anything to do with it. And they hid the chapter numbers in the pages. It's so crazy. They're like little 10-point Times New Roman, like there's a 9 somewhere, and they're totally just forgettable. But that was their sense of like trying to honor those chapter breaks. And I just sort of felt like like as much as I wanted it to be fast, it didn't have that sense of caesura, of these kind of dramatic, poetic pauses. And I felt like kind of maybe stinging a little bit of like not having that realization of how I wanted that book to be. I made very certain that this book, which I was lucky enough to be able to design myself for a second. I was going to say they let me do it, but it was really sort of like I just did it before they did it. And then they realized, like, oh, you already did it? I guess that means we don't have to do it. So that's a lesson to you young artists out there.
So it's deliberate for the pause. And stuff.
I feel like I feel like the whole book is meditative to me. I think it was my wife who said, like, I don't think so at all, but I feel like it has a sense where you want to linger with it. I think the drawings are amazingly beautiful, and it's a quick read if you read it fast, but I feel like it wants to be poured over.
Why don't we open it up for questions from our audience? Does anybody have any questions for our fabulous? I know somebody has a question.
Well, could we see a picture of the nun rabbits or the
I will
religious?
show you a picture. Yes, maybe we'll take another question while I look for a picture of the nuns.
Let's see, towards the beginning, when we first see her.
I think I saw your hand up.
Let's go with Blaze first. Was it fun making the book?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, could you take that off?
I do think that it was fun making the book. I think that one of the things that that was important about when Heidi and I started, and again talking a little bit about the fact that we had this idea. We talked a little bit about collaborating. It was probably a couple years before we kind of came to it again, and part of that was like I would say honestly a crisis that I had, where I was in this town specifically. It's very easy to be distracted by shiny objects and producer types and agents and people who tell you what sells and what they want and what they think other people want, and wanting to be successful, wanting to chase after that, and then I just felt like it wasn't leading to anything. It's like, what was the point of it? And I really thought, if I'm going to do something, I want it to be fun. And I wanted to be what I wanted to do, no matter what. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about it wasn't about a book deal. It wasn't about getting a movie deal. It was just about, I want this to be what I want to do in my free time. I want it to be, this is how I occupy my mind. And so to me, it was just all about that. It was very, it was a lot of hard work. But it was all stuff that I wanted to do and never felt like I had to do.
Well, and both of you have done a lot of licensed work, and that's a very different beast than
the plantation.
It's
the salt mines.
Yeah, it's not exactly the same as doing your own creator work. So can you talk a little bit about sort of the difference, or there's a certain known quantity to doing like Star Trek or Buffy or whatever, and there's something totally different when you're doing something that nobody knows, right? Like, can you talk about that?
You want to talk about Dark Crystal?
Sure.
And Fraggle Rock and all your other cool stuff?
Yeah, I don't want to clip that.
Then it's just a party.
I think the difference is, I put a lot of myself creatively into those projects. They mattered to me, but it says everything when it's yours, like when it's a part of you. And also, there was a pressure that came with those things, where you have to stay true to these different properties and make sure the fans don't lynch you, and make sure you figure out how to draw the right shuttle in the USS Enterprise, and all this weird stuff like the engineering room, like just there's lots of, it's just a different kind of thing. And then you let it go, and people love it for what it already is. It's not necessarily for what you're bringing to the table, although they do appreciate that. But it's different when you are coming, like you're teaming up with someone to do something absolutely new. And like, this is why this feels more special than anything else I've ever done.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so since I helped with the book, just the few things I want to ask is, one, Jim, the whole thing of the thokchas and the whole like religious aspect of that, and in the sense of how much you connected religion and spirituality to the art. What was the origin of that? Where did that come from? That's my first question. And then my second question is, I'd like, Heidi, for you to look in the book and find those pieces where the magic is happening, which are so different from everything else that we've seen. And in a sense, and also the part where the foxes are doing the drugs. Because in a sense, like, what was it like, the challenge? Because that's so different from just the wind and the grass and the rabbits. Mm-hmm. It was a completely different style, a completely different vision that you executed so well. So I want to hear about that challenge for you.
Do you want to start with that?
Sure. Here's one of the magical. When a thokcha is activated, it kind of creates. That's the living art that they're capable of, and that's how that manifests. And then, let's see, where's the other one? Nope, other way. Wait, am I right? No, okay. And this is the other page that he was referencing, where he's tripping pretty hard. A lot of the inspiration for this kind of came with, especially, you know, when you were talking, it was mentioned in the script, you were just throwing things out there as like, could his tongue be a hangman's noose? And I was like, that's what needs to happen, you know, and everything else I just kind of ran with it. But I also thought it'd be kind of cool to take the line art and to actually split it into blue and green, the kind of way that you would see a 3D image, and kind of blur it a little bit to add to that effect. So that was just something that struck me. I don't know if I thought much more about it. Half the time I just do things, and sometimes there's thought behind it, oftentimes it's just instinct. So it's not the best answer, but yeah.
When you were doing the thokchas, there's definitely a mandala aspect to it.
Mm-hmm.
Did you do research in that type of art at all?
No.
No? You just let it go?
Yeah.
You did well.
Thank you.
The book has lots of aspects of this strange world, and one of them is a religious aspect. And so it's the religion of Windism is, I really wanted to, I felt like so many contemporary books create worlds by just making analogs. And so it's sort of like, oh, it's I'll create a fantasy world and where everything is like, it's Christianity versus Judaism, and so it's like these characters are this and these characters are this, and the truth is that could be really amazing and magical, but to me it just sort of felt like it was, wow, I think that creates a great familiarity, and that arguably helps a lot of books become very successful. It's not what I wanted to do at all. And I wanted to take this aspect of rabbits having a religious, spiritual belief and really start to unpack it. And I think that there's a sense in this religion, because the religion isn't good or bad. It's not like they're the good guys or they're the bad guys. There's a real complicated entwining of agendas and aspects to this where it's a little bit like a theocracy, and there's a sense that the religious order is in control. There's a sense in which there is a deeply felt spiritual sense of giving in to the wind. The religion is tritheistic. And the three deities are truth, chaos, and indecision. And I felt like it was, and the rabbits very strongly believe that the life is about the balance of those three things. And even though that's not, like, it may not make sense to us, it makes sense to them. They posit things as how those things interconnect. And so there was a sense of wanting to have that be an aspect of the book. I didn't want it to be. I don't feel like it's a religious book per se, but I do feel like there is a bigger sense of this sense of love, and that is almost like, I mean, there's almost a sense of worship, and not sort of worship at an altar, but there's just a sense of the awe being in front of something divine or something bigger. And I think that's the magic in the world, which is multi-layered, and it starts with carrots, a food source, and it goes into this refined substance called cha, and it goes into these magical objects that are created by artists called thokchas. And it just goes and it goes and it goes, and there's just a sense that this kind of continuum is what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in polar opposites.
We have time for one more question. Yeah.
Has Josephina Rabbit read it yet? How does she feel about it? She approved it?
Oh yeah. She when I brought the book home, she tried to eat it. I think it's a stamp of approval.
I have a serious question as well, which is obviously you guys, you've written the 3 stories now. You've, I guess, on the artwork, almost 2 of the books are finished up. What would be your plans or your hopes or dreams for Cottons beyond that trilogy? Is there plans to maybe extend it beyond? Would you like to do something completely different?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I almost felt like when I was reading this book, I was like, I could, I'm a big D&D player, and I was like, I could play this, I could play this, it's and there's maps, there's the characters and the classes. I was like, it's like a game.
We should totally make a book.
It'll be amazing.
You could totally do that.
Yes.
So that's actually, just to spring off of your question, what are the plans for extending the world?
I feel like the proposal itself went to the publisher, and again, it was written 7 years ago when transmedia was a big catchword. But I felt like it was the important thing was that it's about the world and about the richness of the world, and it's not. And in terms of what we did, I felt like we wanted to make the best comic book that we could. And so I think that I can speak for us. We weren't concerned about is this going to be a movie? Is this going to be a video game? Even though I certainly have, I feel like a gaming aspect to it, even a video game aspect of it. It's not immediately conducive to that kind of thing. But I feel like I would love to see that kind of.
You've got the world there, and I think the world is that. Yeah.
I would say, kind of as a direct answer to this, when we were working on all 3 books, it was right around the time where the TV show Mad Men was on the air. The agency that I worked with was lucky enough to work on that show, so I got a lot of insight into. Maybe a lot of insight, but I got insight into Matt Weiner's process and things like that. And one of the things that he said that was that he wanted the story to continue, but he never knew, he didn't have this at the end of 7 episodes or 7 series, it's going to end with this big thing that I've had since I was a child, and this is my dream. He wrote every season of that TV show like it was the last, like he was just going to tear everything down, nothing was precious, and I really wanted an aspect of that to this book, and I think that there's, the stakes are sort of high in the first book, but there's a sense, specifically in the second and third book, where nothing is precious, and things, and things are really upended in very dramatic ways, and what that sort of led to is the third book feels very much like a conclusion. And I was very happy that, because it was a 3-book deal, that this feels like a story. But even since I picked Heidi up at the airport today, we've been talking about possible next stories and things like that. But I think that I know that Heidi is looking for some rest and relaxation after she's done drawing all 3 books.
I'm going to go to the deep dark world of thru hiking for a little bit, because I don't see the outdoors very often. I love nature, and I've looked at far too many pictures of Yosemite and places like that for inspiration. I'm like, I would like to go to this place.
So that's I would say that there's lots of opportunities for us to continue it, but right now, no. I mean, plans in the works, but nothing set.
Yeah, it's open and exciting, and I think that's a good way to leave it.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much to Jim Pascoe and Heidi Arnhold, and for their beautiful. Noel will give us instructions.
Let's thank Cecil Castellucci for First of all, I want to bring your attention to the champagne. Several bottles left, so please help yourself. Because if you don't drink it, the staff will. Don't want that. And also what I'll do is I'll move all this out of the way. Heidi and Jim will sit behind and sign away. We also have season books available also, so please feel free to pick yours up. And thank you all very much for coming.
You've been listening to the Skylight Books author reading series. Don't forget, you can listen to this and all of our other great podcasts at skylightbooks.com. Thanks again for stopping by, and we hope to see you soon.